Người về đây bày ra mối duyên tình dở dàng. Em đang còn thơ ngây, còn chưa ước mơ người tình lang. Em chỉ biết yêu thôn làng miền quê, yêu đồng lúa xanh bên đò bờ đê và mùa nắng hai mùa và mấy thương tràn hoa. Ai ơi đừng quấn tâm cùng cô gái quê mùa làng. Quanh năm cùng ruộng lương và chân lắm tay buồn như em chỉ thấy vui bên người đồng hương, vui cùng lũ em thơ thật là thương, cùng con dân thành mình mà chữ chan ân tình. Em là cô gái quê còn chưa biết chỉ một câu ước thề, bên thầy mẹ sớm hơn một lần chưa cánh bước xa miền quê. Nếu có về với ai hãy cũng nhớ mối mai, thầy mẹ một lòng lo toan chuyện trâu kéo em dẫn đâu một mình.
I want to thank everyone for coming. We are going to have a speaker from the Oregon Historical Society come up sooner than later. We're in the process. Well, thank you everyone for coming once again. This is quite a great celebration that we are welcoming and opening our arms. And here is the representative from Oregon Historical Society.
Very healthy here. Thank you. Thank you all. It is such a joy to see you all here this evening. Thank you. My name's Eliza Canty-Jones. I work here at OHS. The mission of the Oregon Historical Society is to preserve our state's history and make it accessible to everyone in ways that advance knowledge and inspire curiosity about all the people, places, and events that have shaped Oregon. And we're here today because the end of the Vietnam War 50 years ago is an event that has shaped Oregon in many, many varied and complicated and wonderful ways. And we could not be happier to be here to celebrate the ways that Vietnamese Oregonians have changed and contributed to the place that we all call home today. We know that the history of the Vietnam War is complicated and has affected many, many people across generations and families, and we can't get to all of that history in one event. But we are so grateful for our partners. Thank you so much, Alan Lung, for being a partner with OHS in bringing this history, this art, these culture, and all of these people here to OHS. A big round of applause, please, for Ellen, for our partner in creating this program. There are so many VIPs and people who act on behalf of the public here in the room tonight. We're not going to have I can't name them all, or we'd take up all the time, but you're going to hear from some of them. But just know all of you who are working on behalf of the public in so many ways, in culture, in public service, in philanthropy, we're so grateful for you and appreciate you. I do just want to say thank you to Ann Nato Campbell for introducing to OHS to Alan and helping us make this connection to have this event here. It really means the world to us. And I also want to thank Ann and others in the room who are leaders in Oregon Rises Above Hate. This organization could not be more important in bringing public attention to the need to make sure that everyone here in Oregon can feel safe and can thrive and can have what they need, and that hatred for immigrants and hatred for Asian Americans is not something that is allowed to happen here in Oregon. So thank you, Oregon Rises Above Hate. Everyone, please pay attention to these brochures and work with those folks. We're just really grateful to have such powerful leadership in our community. So please get to know OHS. If this is your first time here, come back. We have incredible exhibits, scholarship, online resources, and a research library that's open to everybody. Thank you, Multnomah County residents whose property taxes support us, so your admission to the museum is always free. Multnomah County residents, thank you. Thank you to everyone in Oregon. The good people of Oregon and the Oregon State Legislature has supported this, your state historical society, to make sure that we can preserve and make accessible the history of all the people, places, and events who have shaped Oregon. So thank you very much to all of our supporters. So with that, I will turn it over to our MC for the evening, Elizabeth Dean. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Eliza. Appreciate it. Well, this is a packed room. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Kính chào quý vị. Hôm nay, cảm ơn các bạn đến hôm nay. My name is Elizabeth Din. I'm a news anchor and reporter for Queen 6, just down the street. It is my honor to be able to be here tonight and step away and be here for this event, but also to honor this day. This day means so much to a lot of people. I think there's a complex range of memories and emotions as we think back to this day and what it means 50 years ago. I talk to my parents daily. They both live in Texas, and I FaceTime them often. And so my mom was like, oh my gosh, this time, like 50 years ago, I was probably getting ready on a boat. She worked at Tan Son Nhat Airport. She was about 22 years old, and she ended up having to separate from her family and would later end up in Texas. And my dad was around this time, 50 years ago, on one of the ships in a fleet with the South Vietnamese Navy. And I remember asking him as a kid, I was like, wait, couldn't you go back and get your family? Because he was married and had 4 boys with his first family at that point. He's like, no, we were the fleet. We couldn't just turn around. So things that I've learned over the years obviously go beyond that, but it's interesting to note where they were 50 years ago, and they're both now in Texas. And so I look back and I'm so humbled, because I know that if the war didn't end the way that it did, well, I wouldn't have been born, because my parents met and fell in love in Texas. And so I'm very proud of that. And as you can tell, I do speak Vietnamese. And I'm really, as a kid, I didn't like it. My parents forced us to speak Vietnamese at home and said it was like talking back to them if we spoke English. And I really didn't like it. And then on Sundays at our church, I learned Vietnamese. But I, to this day, am still so thankful that they taught me that and encouraged me to speak it. And to this day, I speak Vietnamese to my parents and to my in-laws who are Vietnamese. So I'm really grateful. And just another side note, I went to Vietnam for a couple weeks earlier this month. If you want some travel tips, let me know. It's great. I recommend it to everybody. And it was really great as a Vietnamese American, a Viet Kieu, to go there. To also see how they are commemorating 50 years. It's different, right? But to respect that, like what I said at the beginning, that this day brings up a complex range of memories and emotions for all of us. And we have to respect all of that, right? And all of that is validated. We all have important stories. So this day means a lot, and it's truly my honor to be here with all of you. So I thank you for being here. I'm so proud I'm able to live the American dream and be a news anchor, be a storyteller, and also to have been able to tell this artist's story, in fact, in a story that just aired last night. So thank you all for being here to learn much more about what we're doing this evening. I want to just give you an overview of what we're going to do this evening as well. We do have a speaker coming up soon, and that is Oregon State Representative Daniel Nguyen. We'll also have our program called Journey of the Past, Present, and Future. And the past is with Ellen from the Vietnamese Arts Alliance. The present will also have some videos. And I want you to think about any questions that you might have. We will have a chance for Q&A for after the video. And we'll talk with Thuy Tran. You'll see her story. Also an Oregon State representative. And also Paul Vu, optician and owner of EDA Frames. And then there's another chapter to this, right? We look ahead to the future, and that is Van Le, the daughter of this painter, Lê Quang Vinh. She is also featured here, and so she's, of course, showcasing her father's work. And with all of that, we'll look ahead to tonight, and I want to introduce you next to our next speaker, and that's Zoë Maughan from Lewis & Clark.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. Can you hear me? Testing. Okay, there we go. Really close. Thank you so much for being here today. I first want to express my thanks to the Vietnamese Cultural Arts Alliance for making this event a reality. And they have worked tirelessly over the past few years to make their vision of an event honoring 50 years of the Vietnamese community in Oregon a reality. And the outcome is incredible. To see so many familiar faces here is wonderful. My name is Zoë Maughan, and I work as the Vietnamese Portland project manager at Lewis and Clark College and Watsek Library. So what is the Vietnamese Portland project, you might ask? Vietnamese Portland Memory History Community is a multi-year archival project that seeks to document a more representative, thorough history of the city of Portland by preserving the history and contributions of the Vietnamese community to our city. This project is an attempt to promote Vietnamese American representation and create a more inclusive history of Portland by letting people of Vietnamese descent across all walks of life tell their stories. In addition to oral history interviews, the collection also includes documents, photographs, and ephemera. From stories of leaving Vietnam to making new homes in Portland, you've shared your stories with us. We're honored to be a repository for this history, ensuring that it becomes a part of the larger historical narratives about Portland and Oregon. We've had the opportunity to talk to people from all walks of life, from entrepreneurs to artists to political leaders. You will have the opportunity to engage with some of these stories tonight. The 15 banners that you see displayed around the room were curated by our student archives assistants, Nan Han and Tuan Nguyen. They spent hours engaging with all of the stories in our collection and identifying themes that struck them. The traveling exhibit here examines 3 main themes: entrepreneurship underpins community, resonance in Portland, narratives woven through art, music, and performance, and voices of empowerment, leadership in Portland. During the curation, we often talked about the rich nature of the oral history collection and how the wide variety of stories in the collection come together to weave a unique tapestry of Portland. This is Vietnamese Portland. I want to express my gratitude to the many community partners that we've worked with over the course of the project, including the Asian and Pacific American Network of Oregon, the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization, the Vietnamese Community of Oregon, the Vietnamese Senior Association of Oregon, Portland Public Schools Vietnamese Dual Language Immersion Program, Hoi Phu Nguyen, and the Vietnamese Cultural Arts Alliance, again. We've also had the honor of working with a variety of individual consultants, including Dr. Van Trung, Dr. Connie Nguyen Trung, Tao Tu, Jill Thuy Chu Nguyen, Olivia Chapman, Viet Ang Ngai, Crystal Mariano, and Daniel Dai. These organizations and individuals have been absolutely crucial to so many of our projects, from launching the Oral History Project, to translating materials, to providing cultural consultation on our exhibits and curricular resources. I also want to thank the over 120 individuals who have participated in an oral history with us. It's an honor to be able to preserve your stories, and we could not do this work without you. This is your archive. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And to the entire Vietnamese American community here in Oregon, thank you. We're honored to be able to do the work to preserve your stories and contributions to our state. This work would absolutely not exist without you. We're so glad you're here. I'll be at the welcome table this evening, so please don't hesitate to stop by and get more information about participating in the project, from participating in an oral history to sharing photographs. This is an ongoing project, and we continue to collect oral histories and other documents. I would be so happy to talk with you about how we can preserve your story in the archive. Thank you so much for being here, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Zoe, thank you. Is this the first time we're meeting, right? Or we talked on the phone many times before?
We've Zoomed, but this is our first time meeting in person.
Yeah, because it was a few years ago that somebody recommended that you guys interview me, and I can't remember who it was, but thank you if they're here. Zoe, thank you for this incredible work, and you and your colleagues at Lewis and Clark. I mean, I have lived here for almost a decade, and having lived around the country, I'm not sure that there's anything like this that exists, so I think it's just groundbreaking, and for so many of us here, Oregonians and in the Vietnamese community and beyond, thank you for thinking that our stories are important and sharing them, so thank you. I want to introduce our next speaker, and as I mentioned, this is Oregon State Representative Daniel Nguyen, who will give us some delightful remarks about today and today's events. Daniel, will you come here, please? Thank you for being here as well. Good to see you, my friend.
See you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Elizabeth, for that warm welcome. I guess, did the invitation go out today? I don't know. I don't see anybody here. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. It's truly an honor and pleasure. You know, today is a historic day. In the halls of the Capitol designated April 30th, 2025 as Vietnamese American Remembrance Day. And tonight, in the halls of the Oregon State Historical Society, 50 years ago, this would have been impossible. I'm thrilled and honored to be here with you to be part of this historic moment, celebrating unlikely voices. And as I was preparing my remarks for the speech I gave this morning on a bill today in the Oregon State Capitol, I was struck by the gravity of this moment in our history as we gather here in this chamber. It was 50 years ago today. What words can I share with you? And I thought back to this clock my father had hung in the center of every house we lived in. On the house floor today, I had it propped up on my desk as I was speaking for everyone to see. It wasn't nothing fancy. It was just a plywood cutout with a basic clock at the top. There was no winding mechanism. There wasn't a bell that would ding at every hour. And there was no cuckoo, 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 like the clocks that I went and saw at my friend's house. But it did have this distinctive shape. And as a kid, I looked at that clock and I imagined it was a dragon. I imagined it with a head at the top and a serpent-like body and a mermaid-like tail. Everywhere we moved, my dad found a spot to have it centrally located so all of us, the whole family, could see it every day. You know, later I realized that that clock, made in the shape of Vietnam, were must-have fixtures in the homes of thousands of Vietnamese families of a certain era. These clocks were always placed in the center of our homes as a constant reminder of our past and centering our history. In many ways, that was what we did today with the House Concurrent Resolution 34. It was with that gathering, it's the same thing we're doing here in the Oregon Historical Society. We are hanging this resolution, this day of remembrance, like a clock in the center of our house, to mark our history and to celebrate our enduring contributions of Vietnamese Americans to the strength, diversity, and spirit of our country. House Concurrent Resolution 34 designates April 30th, 2025 as Vietnamese American Remembrance Day on the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. And this resolution is deeply personal to me. As you all may know already, I'm the child of Vietnamese refugees, and the proud son of Second Lieutenant Nguyen, an officer in the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. You know, he served his country with honor, with loyalty, and with the belief that freedom was worth defending. And it was 50 years ago this month, April 1975, when my father left Vietnam with my mom, who's in the audience here, along with my 3 older siblings. And he left behind a country he loved and the uniform he wore with pride. He fled not because he gave up, but because he believed his family deserved a chance to live free. And like so many others, he came here seeking safety, a new beginning, and began the long journey of rebuilding a life for his family from scratch. April 30th, 1975 was a turning point. For many, it marked the end of a nation, but also the beginning of a long journey for millions of Vietnamese who left in search of a new life in unfamiliar countries, speaking new languages, building new communities from the ground up. This resolution honors that journey. Today, Vietnamese Americans, like my family, are part of every aspect of American life. We are business owners, teachers, doctors, artists, as we see here, engineers, and public servants. We are communities shaped by loss, but defined by resilience and by our deep gratitude to this nation for opening its doors when we had nowhere else to go. And as I reflect on this moment, I feel both pride and sorrow. My father, who was born in April, did not live to see this day. He did not live to witness his son standing in the House chamber. He did not witness his son speaking before the Oregon Historical Society and giving voice to the story of our people. And that truly saddens me. But I carry him with me today. And through the resolution we passed earlier today, I hope we carry forward the legacy of all those who came before us with humility, with strength, with a commitment to the future. I want to recognize those in the audience who came to witness this historic event, whose first language is Vietnamese. So in closing, I'd like to read parts of our House Concurrent Resolution 34 in Vietnamese, and again in English for those who were not there to witness this in the Capitol. Tôi xin phép đọc nghị định 34 trong tiếng Việt để cho quý vị nào mà nói tiếng Việt. Tôi xin đọc. Được quyết định bởi Đại hội lập pháp tiểu bang Oregon, chúng tôi, các thành viên của Đại hội lập pháp lần thứ 83, long trọng tuyên bố vinh danh ngày 30 tháng 4 năm 2025 là ngày ghi nhớ của người Mỹ gốc Việt để tưởng niệm 50 năm kết thúc chiến tranh. Và tiếp theo, quyết định để xác lập, chúng tôi tôn vinh những người trong quân đội Nam Việt của Hoa Kỳ đã phục vụ trong chiến tranh Việt Nam và bày tỏ lòng biết ơn đối với những hy sinh của họ trong cuộc chiến đấu vì tự do và công lý. Và tiếp theo, quyết định để xác lập, chúng tôi chúc mừng cộng đồng người Mỹ gốc Việt vì những đóng góp liên tục hiện có của họ dành cho tiểu bang và đất nước, khẳng định cam kết của mình cho việc thúc đẩy sự hiểu biết, trân trọng lịch sử và tương lai tươi sáng của tất cả những ai chọn xứ sở này là quê hương. Và tiếp theo, quyết định để xác lập, chúng tôi khuyến khích tất cả những người dân Oregon hãy tham gia vào việc công nhận sự kiện di sản văn hóa này. Và tiếp theo, quyết định để xác lập, một bản sao của nghị định này sẽ được gửi đến các nhà lãnh đạo cộng đồng, các tổ chức cựu chiến binh và đại diện cộng đồng người Mỹ gốc Việt. Và tiếp theo, quyết định để xác lập, nghị định này sẽ được đọc trước Đại hội lập pháp vào ngày 30 tháng 4 năm 2025 như một biểu tượng của chúng ta duy trì sự đoàn kết, tưởng nhớ và tiến bộ. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Legislative Assembly of the State of Oregon that we, the members of the 83rd Legislative Assembly, designate April 30th, 2025 as Vietnamese American Remembrance Day to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon, and be it further resolved that we honor the lives of those who served in the Vietnam War in the militaries of South Vietnam and the United States, and we express our gratitude for their sacrifices in the pursuit of liberty and justice, and be it further resolved that we celebrate the Vietnamese American community for their ongoing contributions to our state and nation, and we reaffirm our commitment to promoting understanding, respect, and appreciation for all, the shared history and bright future of all who call this land home, and be it further resolved that we encourage all Oregonians to join in the recognition of this cultural heritage celebration, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be delivered to community leaders, veterans organizations, and representatives of the Vietnamese American community. And be it further resolved that this resolution be read before the Legislative Assembly on April 30th, 2025, as a symbol of our continued commitment to unity, remembrance, and progress. May this resolution be like a clock in the center of our house to mark our history and to celebrate the enduring contributions of Vietnamese Americans to the strength, diversity, and spirit of our country. Thank you.
Thank you, State Representative Daniel Nguyen, which a little note, I know his family and his father would be proud that not only are you making history by being a Vietnamese American state representative in Oregon, he is one of 5 Vietnamese Americans who are lawmakers here in the state of Oregon, and that made history a few years ago when the 5 of them were elected. So I think that's pretty historic and another great thing about Oregon, and you guys each have incredible stories, and you do too as well. Thank you, Daniel. I want to next introduce someone who is really pivotal in this exhibit tonight, and all 3 of them, and he's going to share a bit more about how this is so personal and special tonight. And I will introduce him in the traditional Vietnamese way, and that way is with our last, middle, and first name. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lương Trọng Đức Allen.
Good evening. This is a wonderful, tremendously emotional evening for all of us, in both sorrow and in joy. In this, what I would like to share with you as I started this program 2 years ago, thank you, Anne, who encouraged us to do something for the 50th anniversary. What I would like to share with you, folks, tonight is a journey through the eyes of one artist on how he looked at America when he came to America as an immigrant who knew nothing about America. And the only thing that made him understand and be able to breathe and be able to exist every day without falling apart. And it is his artwork. This is how he breathed. This is how he understood America. This is the only thing that he understood about what has happened. Everything that has happened so quickly in over a course of 6 months. And the next thing he knew, he was no longer in a home he recognized, in a place that he understood. So tonight, I will start the presentation with the past, because that's who we are. And as we move next to the present, which is here at Oregon Historical, which we are so proud to be part of as an Oregonian, as a Portlander. I am a U.S. citizen who I love this country, and I love all the opportunities that we have gotten since we've been here. I would like to share this story with you. I got a very interesting text from one of my brothers, who we really, because of our age difference, we don't speak very often. But 2 days ago, he texted my whole family and said, "Do you guys know we left Vietnam this hour on April 28th, 50 years ago?" And so when I looked at that and I realized, generationally, I am much younger than him. And yet he is still able to connect and be able to tell me and remind me that it was 50 years ago that we got on a boat and we left Binh Bạch Đằng. So today, as sharing with you folks, as my home, with my home, my family, as I look out to the audience, so many people that I recognize, and so many are my friends who have been with me on this journey for so long. I have something to present to you. Earlier today, you were given a little wooden vessel. Everyone who received a wooden vessel, please stand up. Thank you. Everyone who wrote your name, your ancestral name, please remain standing. In our presentation tonight, there were 50 votes handed out. This is our 50th year in Oregon. All of you who are standing, welcome to America. You have now brought your ancestors to America. Those of you who had to sit down, your boat never made it. Maybe it turned around. Maybe it got lost at sea. Maybe it never left port. But those of you who are standing, this is your second opportunity in this wonderful country, in this wonderful state, in this wonderful land. So we would like to remind you this evening to be gratified, to be in great gratitude for the second opportunity that you may have. in here, as Elizabeth introduced me as my last name first. In our tradition, last name is very important because this is your ancestors. Without them, you would not be here. And so when you wrote your name on that boat, not only did you carry you, but you carry your ancestors with you to this wonderful country. So this is the way, when I looked out in the sea of people that are in this room, what is amazing to me is there was a sea of people in Vietnam that never made it, whether by choosing or whether they did not have the opportunity. But in this, what I would like to be able to recognize all those who came before us and all of those who will come after us. So I presented a presentation of art in 3 stages. Number 1, the past. This is where we all came from. The present, what is our contribution? What it is that we are doing now as we are given the opportunity, the second opportunity. What will you do with it? And the third will be about the future and the children and the young ladies that dance out here in a tradition that they do not know because they were not born here. And yet, somebody taught them. And I feel as my responsibility as a person that was given a second chance, that I give that responsibility and share that responsibility with all of you in this room to make sure that the children and the future always understand where they come from, no matter what nationality, no matter what background, that they always know who they are and where they come from. So we began our exhibit with the past, which is me. And those of you who are standing, thank you so much. You may sit down. I'm going to ask the votes back from you later. This will be a future exhibit at Jeffrey Allen. And we will include these votes. And this is where we say opportunities. These little vessels, these little boat that you have in your hands, were just a little vessel that people use for food. And to me, how appropriate. Food, a boat, an opportunity that we are given, and what we will do with it. And so, on that, I would love for you folks to think about your past and how it will affect the present, and what can you do for the future, and what would you like the future to look like. Thank you.
Alan, that was lovely. And I want you guys to look up to the screen. And now we have a video presentation for you. And we will have a Q&A afterwards. So please think about if you have a question.
My name is Thuy Tran. I was born in Tây Ninh, Vietnam, and then moved to Saigon, Vietnam. And from Saigon was when we left Vietnam and head over to the US. One day, my uncle came knocking on my dad's door and said he was going to leave and whether or not my dad would like to bring our family. Immediate family only, 1 suitcase, be ready in 2 days, meet at Vũng Tàu, and off we go. I consider myself definitely an Oregonian. I'm especially endeared now to Oregon since I was elected as state representative of House District 45. In 22, when I ran for state representative, there was 1 Vietnamese state representative. Little did I know that during that election, there were 4 other folks who were running also. Myself in House District 45, here in Northeast Portland. There was 1 in Outer East Portland. There was 1 in Lake Oswego, South Portland, and 1 in Hillsborough. The door was open for Vietnamese American to enter politics. It took about 50 years for the community to nurture us to be able to allow us to serve. My current project is a play call Belonging, a memoir. And it questions, why do I make the decisions that I do? Why do doors open and we get to walk through them, or decide to walk through them or not walk through them? Folks look at me and say, Thuy, why are you an optometrist? Why are you a lieutenant colonel in the Air National Guard? Why are you a Lions Club member? Why are you a state representative? Well, those doors open for me, and I get to decide, should I walk through it or not? And do what is on the other side of those doors resonate with my values? Why did I join the Air National Guard? Because I get to serve the United States of America, who have given my family a home after a devastating loss from the Vietnam War. Why did I become the state representative? Because I get to serve the state of Oregon that have given me so much. So why do we do what we do? The door opens if the values, the service resonate with me, the person, then let's walk through that door and see what good we can do.
My name is Paul Vu. My birth name, given name by my parents, is We, spelled H-U-Y. We immigrated here from Vietnam in 1975. We were from Vũng Tàu, Vietnam. And we were very lucky in that my mom and all her grandparents and her parents and her siblings were all fishermen living in the coast. So we all had fishing boats. So when Saigon fell, we were fortunate enough to go onto the fishing boats, and there were already U.S. military supply ships in the bay. We lined up next to the boats, big waves. There's a big rope ladder on next to the ships. I remember my mom telling us that at 3, I was holding onto her neck, and she was holding onto my sister, and she was climbing the rope by herself up. And we were fortunate enough to, all of us made it onto the supply ships. And they took us to Guam, and then they flew us to Fort Chaffee, I believe in Arkansas. And then we got sponsored by St. Rose Catholic Church in Portland. And from Arkansas, we flew to Portland, and we stayed here ever since 1975. Being raised by Asian parents, they were looking for me to do something with healthcare, pharmacist, dentist, doctor. But I kind of broke the mold and did something else on my own. I went and became an optician. I've always been intrigued with eyewear. And then now, currently, I think at the end of my career is I'm doing wholesale and I'm doing design work. I think as I've matured and aged, I'm going back to my roots. I want to find out more about Vietnam, where I came from, the culture, the heritage, the art of Vietnam, and trying to incorporate that into my eyewear. The Asian culture itself has basically guided me through life and through my career. What your parents instill you from a very young age, you keep throughout your life. And so I believe that's the most important part that was given to me, was that what my parents taught me.
Okay, and if I can invite up in State Representative Thuy Tran and Paul Vu, optician and owner of EDA Frames. Okay, so I do believe we have a microphone out there. And then thank you, you guys. Also, look at her honoring the South Vietnamese flag. My dad would love this very much. Does anyone want to start with the question? Okay, if not, then I will start and you guys can think about it. We do have mics out there, so just raise your hand. On this day, as you reflect on, you watch that video of you telling your story, and I'll start with you, Thuy, and the significance of this day. What comes to your mind when you think about what it means to you to be Vietnamese American?
Xin chào quý vị. Hello, everyone. What does it mean for me to be Vietnamese? It's to be with community and to serve and to prepare our future through our children, through our work, through our service.
Well, similar question to be Vietnamese American. How do you answer that? What goes through your mind and what that means for you?
Firstly, it's I want to say it's a very small world, especially here in Portland. Dr. Tran here, I worked for her 20 years ago, so it's such a small world. But being Vietnamese American, it's hard to say. I came here at 3, so I'm Vietnamese. I always say I'm Vietnamese, but when I travel, I always say I'm American, first and foremost. So for me, it's been 50 years since I've been here, but I've never gone back. So my goal is to go back someday and then truly see my roots and see where we started from.
That's great, and I hope you do, as I mentioned, because with me going back, and I was born here, but then to go back, it's 3 times for me now, and I think it's really interesting, especially being able to speak the language, that there, and it's like a new generation, right, compared to like when my parents and the new generation now, at least that's the vibe that I felt, and I was worried, I think the first time I was like, is there animosity, you know, I'm like this outsider, but no, and I think having lived in other parts of the country as well, is that what's underlying about Vietnamese, wherever Vietnamese people are, we are a welcoming, friendly people, right? So I think that wherever we go, that is the case. And I'm sure I hope you get that opportunity. And I know you guys live and breathe that, but also experience it. Do you have any questions out there for Paul or for Thuy at this point? You guys are a shy group. Come on now. Okay, well, how about we talk about the Vietnamese cultural attire? And you and I are both wearing the áo dài. Can you talk about how special that is for you? And for me, my mother taught me that the áo dài, which of course comes with pants, is also meant to really show how beautiful the woman is. And that there's I think what's special about the Vietnamese áo dài, the Vietnamese dress, is that I don't know any other that comes with pants too, at least this version. There are different regional versions as well. This is one version. Thuy, what are your thoughts on Vietnamese attire, and in particular the áo dài?
Before I answer that question, Paul, my family left Guam and went to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas too. What a small world. Okay. The áo dài, besides being a traditional dress, is also a form of expression, and we can express ourselves through the art on our dress. Today I am wearing a yellow dress with 3 stripes, and this is the freedom flag. It was the flag of the democracy of Vietnam. And as we deal with issues in our country at this time and around the world, it reminds me, especially today, April 30th, that we need to fight for our freedom. We need to fight for our democracy, because South Vietnam was the democracy and it fell. And so the 3 stripes representing North, Central, and South Vietnam is on a body of yellow, which is the skin of Vietnamese folks. It reminds me to take care of what we have right now. Cherish community, cherish our state, our country, and the democracy that we have now.
Thank you, Thuy. Paul, would you like to comment about Vietnamese attire or cultural attire and how that speaks to you, or anything you'd like to share? And side note, I think my parents also went through Fort Chaffee, so we'll have to talk later.
Well, if you see what I'm wearing, right? It's not very traditional. I'm actually training right now, so I can actually fit in it because there's like slits on the side here, and it wouldn't look very well.
That's a whole other thing that we know too, but these are tailor-made. They are tailor-made, and so like if you've had one for a while, and if you need to get it taken out, taken in, you do go to a tailor for them to be tailor-made. No questions yet?
There is a question.
There
in
is
the
a
back.
question.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Flo.
I'll break the ice. I have two children. Thuy, you know my children. They're teenagers now, and they've got a mind of their own. They're Vietnamese American. We lived in Vietnam for 8 years. And it was a great opportunity because they got to be with their family and get to know the culture. Now we're here. And we may be here for a while. They may be here forever, like a lot of our children here as well. And how do we help that next generation keep that Vietnamese culture and heritage? Yeah, that's my question.
Paul, who wants to go first at that?
As I think with your story, like with myself, Sunday school was basically where after Mass or before Mass, we have classes. And that's where we learned about Vietnam, we learned about the language. And I think that, or I don't know, these days they might have Vietnamese classes in some of the schools, but I think that would be best if you sign them up for Sunday school to learn the culture and the language.
I do things in different ways. So as you heard me mention, on June 21st, there will be a play at the Winnenstadt Theater, and the play is titled Belonging, a Memoir, and it is one of the activities that will contribute to this 50th year anniversary of the fall of Saigon. It will have Vietnamese actor and actresses. It will have a sound producer that is Joshua Lee, that is Vietnamese. The videography will be done by Summer Liu, Vietnamese. She has her own movie, Yellow Balloon. And so as a community, what can we do to encourage our children to explore their history and culture? Let's create opportunity for them so that they can do what they're passionate about in a way that they can explore their history and culture.
Those are both great answers, and I do want to add similarly, I know that there are some schools that offer the immersion classes for Vietnamese and many other languages, but there are some local places of worship and churches that also do that. And then the internet is really great too, and of course, if you get the chance to travel. And I also think that food brings us together, and we have such great places that offer great Vietnamese food. That's another great starting point, but just go ahead and keep going, keep pursuing that, and encourage your children to learn that. And as adults too, I feel like be that child at heart, and whether it's Duolingo, not exactly the best, but but if you can start there, learn the language, learn the culture. There's so many options out there, so many tools to help you learn more about Vietnamese culture. And I'd say do that deep dive and just start somewhere. And if you've got young kids and they're going to be like me when I was a kid, like, I hate this, they will thank you. I thanked my parents today, and I was like, cảm ơn bố mẹ. Bác cần phải nói tiếng Việt. Hôm nay con mới nói tiếng Việt được. So cảm ơn bố mẹ. They will be like me one day. I promise they will. Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah,
or
there's one comment.
Yeah.
Over here.
Yes.
Well, kind of common questions, I guess. My name is Lam Quang. I am an artist. I make lights. My world is very different from what you guys, mostly. I have broke away from my family. When I came here, I was 14. So I broke away from my family with my mom, who was an amazing woman who had sacrificed so much of herself and to be able to come up with the funds to get us out of Vietnam on the last flight. So my world had broken away so much. Most of my friends are white. I live out in Astoria, and I just did this installation, and it's honoring the ancestor. I have this dragon that comes down and rescuing the eggs. It's representing the helicopter that came in this day to lift people out. And in my work, in my daily life, daily thinking, all this atrocity that we have not come to terms with, the atrocity that the American government, the Defense Department has sent and killed millions of us. And we need to come to terms with that. I mean, to be able to grow, to be able to take care of each other, to love, we have to come to terms with that. I mean, you know, I wish I could share more of this to you guys. And I guess I'm trying to find my way through Alan back to the Vietnamese community. Yeah, I guess that's just my 2 cents.
No, thank you for sharing. And I said it earlier, I think everyone's story really has meaning, right? Everyone's does. And everyone's story is not the same. And I know when I was younger, there was a time, trust me, especially my teenagers, I was not down with being Vietnamese. I wanted to be like everything but and be, you know, all-American stereotype. And, you know, I think our journeys evolved. So I thank you for sharing. I thank you both. Any quick comments before you guys go? Or okay. Thank you for opening up a little bit about yourselves. Thank you both.
Last comment. Just quickly, last comment. So when you saw the video of how I described how we came over, how my mom carried us, I'd like to thank my mom. She's back there. Má đứng lên cho con. Oh. Perfect timing, Mom. But I just want to thank you. Without her, really our family would not be here. Thank you. Thank you, Oregon, for bringing us here. We love Oregon. Thank you.
Yeah.
Besides being a state representative, I am the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Thuy Tran. Ba má, would you stand up? Cảm ơn ba má. Thank you.
Thank you both. And come on, các bác. Now we'd like to welcome back, I believe, our musicians who will be performing, and we'll have another video presentation. So keep those questions in mind as well after the video portion as well.
Ta đi chợ giống tề tề ngồi bên đi gốc cây đá tề tề ngồi bên đi gốc cây đá thấy cô này thấy cô bán rượu mặc áo nâu cô lại thắt dây lưng xanh khăn xanh có gì này có gì đôi đầu này có gì đôi đầu để thương này để thương để nhớ này để sầu thôi ra đi. Tề tề ngồi bên gốc gốc cây đa, tề tề ngồi bên gốc gốc cây đa. Thấy cô này thấy cô bán rượu, mặc áo áo nâu và cô lại thắt dây lưng xanh.
My name is Vung Lê. I always tell people it's like fun with a V. Right now, in 2025, we've embarked on exhibiting my dad's work, which has been his lifelong dream. And ever since he passed in 2014, I've adopted that dream. My dad's name was Lê Quang Vinh. He was from Huế, Vietnam. And he was in the middle of the South China Sea when Saigon fell. And a U.S. ship was sailing by, and they said, you have two options now. You guys can sail back home to Vietnam, or you can follow us to the U.S. And there's pictures of him in 1975s, like with 3 or 4 paintings already made. So he is coming to Oregon, and the moment he has a place to sleep, he's painting. He was had his day job 9 to 5, and he'd come home and he was painting. From all the way until the wee hours of the night. And that was the kind of the way I remember him as a child. The end of the Vietnam War was very traumatic for a lot of people, and a lot of people have different ways of processing it or not. For my dad specifically, it was very much through these paintings. He conveyed all of his pains and his sorrows and his despair through a lot of the stories that he was trying to convey. And at the same time, he painted them from that pain and sorrow to teach something. Because of this, I want to share this so you don't forget it. One of the biggest points themes that pop up through his paintings is the value of art and culture. To him, an artist's job is to remind people of their humanity, what it means to be a person. And without art and culture, he felt like people become a shell of themselves and they forget who they are. The thing I worried about for me and a lot of, and my siblings, and ultimately Vietnamese Americans, is that if you forget who you are, then you don't belong anywhere. And I think that to him was what he had to suffer through, right? Because his identity was associated with being, a Vietnamese person. He was part of Vietnam, he was fighting for it, and then to be transported to Mars, trying to find that purpose again. How do I live in a place I can't communicate with anyone here? I can't relate on an immediate level to people here. What can I do? And that it was through that art. Ultimately, he told me, we are Americans. You are an American. And it's what you do, you add to being an American. So you have to bring your identity and your culture and add it to them and remind them that that's important to them, so that American culture, so American people don't forget who they are. So I thought that message was the most important thing I wanted to convey through all of these exhibits. It's beautiful art, yes, but it's relevant and it's important, and this is why.
I'd like to bring up Vung Lê a little bit more about why this is important in your work. So you met Alan earlier, and Vung is Alan's niece, and again, this is her late father's beautiful work, just a little bit of 22 incredible pieces. Vung, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for coming. Every time I look out in the room, it gets more and more full. So thank you so very much. This is really close. We're going to talk really close. This is a small sample of my father's work. I am, through what my uncle started off through, of the past, the present, and the future, I am my father's future. And what I wanted to share in my experience with him is the stories that he left with me, the memories that he left with me, and the opportunity to continue to share his art with everybody, so that people may feel what he wanted me to feel, which is to always feel connected, to always remember who you are. So I hope that with these works, you will feel the same.
Could you tell us more about the painting?
Was that the question? Is it question time? Yes. I would love to tell you more about the paintings. So the 3 paintings here, we've picked out of the 22. These are the 3 that focus the most on music and art, as today we've got to experience the wonderful traditional Vietnamese music. We'll start over here. He's literally the musician, and in his hand he is playing the same instrument that one of the ladies here plays. It's 2 strings, and it has a little bell at the bottom. And of course, the painting is called Nguyen, which also means 2 strings, is how we translated it. And through this painting, he said that music, without music and art, what is there to life? And this is to convey how important it was to him to continue to paint and share his art. He was also a singer. Amongst many other artistic skills, he was a singer. He also was a sculptor. I would hear him sing in the garage all the time. And he sang as he painted. And then when he'd have his coffee, he'd sing again. And then he'd go back into the garage and he would continue to paint. And it was like my uncle had conveyed, that was his breathing. He was living. He was surviving in this moment of trying to connect in his world, processing what has happened to him. And he felt like music is what compels people, connects people, heals people, as it has healed him. Until we move forward to this piece. This is a very fun piece logistically, because this is 20% smaller than the actual original. So there was no truck big enough for that original. So we have here the print. The original is at my gallery, at Jeffrey Allen Gallery, me and my uncle's gallery. This is a musician singing to a woman, and on her arms, on her shoulders is a yoke, and it's carrying 2 baskets of fruit. This story is called Tự Tình Khúc. Tự Tình Khúc translates to the song of lament, or the song of regret. This is a very pertinent story because when I was little, I had to translate this story a lot. And so I'll give you the 8-year-old version of it. This musician is singing to the lady in the market. There's a palace in the background. The emperor lives in the palace. But the emperor is a fool because he takes art and culture for granted. And without art and culture, there is no people. There is no one to be a leader of. If he does not respect music, art, and culture, then he does not respect us. And therefore, we don't need to be here for him. Of course, the emperor wasn't impressed by these songs that he was singing to the market, so he banished him on a horse. But soon after, people started to leave his city. And every day he'd look out, fewer and fewer people were in his town. And this becomes the song of regret. He regretted not taking care of his people, not believing in their music and their art and their culture that they provided him to lead. And so this is his song. And then finally, the lady on the right. Oh. This lady, this painting is called Yu Ca Yang Ya. It is about dancing. It is about music in a form together where it's about musicians and how they bring life into being, and that the talents that they bring are not just for us to enjoy, but they are us to be connected together, to be united together. That there is no barrier in music.
there is no barrier in art. Anyone and everyone can enjoy it. And through that, everyone can also share in their joys, but also help each other heal through the pains and difficulties. This is a woman to remind us to look to her whenever we feel alone or lost or in pain, or we want to share in our celebration and our joys with someone. That is you, Nguyen.
Thank you, Van. I learned a lot when I first met you, I think a few months ago, and I don't know that many people may know this, but that her late father, he passed away 11 years ago. He was 73, but you saw it in the video. He started painting basically from the moment he came to Oregon in 1975. So roughly, 40 years, he put together these stunning paintings. And when you come up close, you'll see the incredible detail. He was not an artist by trade. He was a janitor at Intel, and it was in his free time that he created these paintings, and he never made them. You look at them, you think he was living to be an artist and to be in big museums and whatnot. He did this because your uncle had said it was like oxygen for him. This was his outlet when he wasn't working. Do you have one standout memory about that, about how for you it was oh, Daddy just went to work, but I just saw him as a guy who was painting all the time?
I think I'll speak to one story that I remember fondly. So I'm the youngest out of three. My siblings are they're both over a decade older than I am. So my dad got stuck babysitting me. And of course, he had to watch over me while he was painting because that's all he wanted to do was to paint. And I had said so before that he's very much, I always knew him as an artist, and then he had to go to work sometimes, but really he was just an artist. And my favorite memories of him are painting, and I'm just running around. Just around I looked at his paints, they're all over the floor. We're in the master bathroom of the house because it has this tallest ceiling. And engaging, and him always allowing me so. He never was like, this is a private space, I'm painting, you need to go into another room. He just let me be around him as he painted. And I feel like it was, in a way, our communication. And it's very funny because I grew older, he never wanted me to be an artist. That's something he always told me. As he's painting, don't be an artist. Don't do it. And I'm like, okay, are you gonna eat dinner now? Yeah. So I'm trying to remember your question.
I think this is where you put your tissue stuff in his name.
Oh, yes, I did. So amongst one of the many adventures that I had with him, because the way that he painted was as if it's the biggest canvas you can fit in the room and the smallest paintbrush you can buy. That's the style that he liked to paint in. And he had all these beautiful colored oil paints on the floor and these little dishes. And I'm running around because I'm 8. And I had stepped in one of the paints. And then I had stepped on the carpet. And I stood very still. And he looked at me because he was waiting for me to run around. Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. And so I had stood there for a good long while until he put his paintbrush down. He said, "What's wrong?" And I looked at him, and I looked at my foot, and I lifted up my foot, and this bright orange oil paint on the carpet. And he goes, he grabs, and the smell is the most distinct of his studio. It's oil paints that he's working with. So there's a big jar of paint thinner. And so he grabs my foot, tries to dab my sock into the paint thinner, trying to get it off, tries to dab that on the carpet. Needless to say, after this shocking experience, he looked at me and he said, "Do you want to tell Mom?" And actually to that, I guess I'll follow suit. In the back corner is my mother. We never got that paint stain out of the floor. But it was, in a way, I hated to see that stain go away when we redid our floors. So in the opportunity of speaking about my father, I always love every opportunity to speak about him. So if you have any more questions after this you'd like to ask me, I'd be more than happy to. Because with each time I get to say his name and tell you his story, I feel he's that much more alive.
Thank you, Vân. Yeah, I wanted to shine that light because you definitely telling his stories and presenting his work is keeping him alive. And it's just incredible that all this work was being created and many people are just now seeing it for the first time. And I know that's you and your uncle's goal is to show another side of Vietnamese culture through your father's work, which has so many deep stories. I know that we have something else too, and this has to do with another part of this portion of what we're doing tonight about the future, if I'm correct. Are we doing that one next with some... Am I moving?
We'll introduce
the
girls.
I believe we have 10 young ladies who are helping
and
with
if
this
we could get
presentation.
the band to play as well.
And then keep those questions in mind, and we'll have that Q&A a little bit after that, but Vân will also explain this next part of the presentation. Okay, and if we could have our friends come back up, and you can get a closer look at what they are wearing, and Vân will walk us through the significance as well.
So this is the whole circle, the past, the present, and the future. These young girls are dressed in traditional Vietnamese white áo dài school uniforms. So these are 3,000 years old, that this particular attire and this style. And on their backs is the present that my dad had left with me, these paintings. These are 10 of them. And the future is I took my dad's paintings and I put them onto fabric, which my dad had never thought of before, so that these girls are the whole together, the past, the present, and the future. These paintings, the originals are showcased at Oswego Heritage House, and on the other end, they are showcased at Jeffrey Allen Gallery. These pieces, we wanted an opportunity to be able to share his work. I wanted to take that dream that he had and share his work in all the forms that I know as a creative and artistic person. And to be able to see the future carry my dad's work into the future, to continue to be shared, to continue to be appreciated, and not only that, but to be held by them, to be a part of them. This is part of their culture. This is part of our culture. It is for everybody. So thank you so much for getting a chance to observe them. Thank you, ladies, for coming back up. You may exit the stage.
Yeah, that's very, very unique, and I know people want to take a closer look if they can later. Anybody have questions right now? We have time for Q&A for Vân. Any questions for her, about the artwork, about her father, about tonight? You guys are shy again. Okay, well, I was thinking how it was really cool. Your dad, also in the Vietnamese Portland community, his nickname was Vinh Râu. That means bearded Ving. And there's a little more to that as well, because there was a picture of him earlier, and I feel like that's kind of how, like, he was a cool dude. So very stylish, and the picture was like from the 80s, but I felt like that kind of, there are people who dress like that now, and it looked like a modern picture, basically. And so he definitely had a lot of style to him. Can you talk about, for those who knew him outside of the family, and Vinh Râu, and who he was, because I love that you are helping us to get to know your father, those of us who didn't get to meet him.
Thank you for the opportunity. So my dad had a very full beard. And of course, in the Vietnamese community, he wasn't the only Vinh in town. There's other Vins, right? But there's Vinh with the glasses, Vinh who's tall, Vinh who's short, and my dad got Vinh with the beard. And everyone knew exactly who he was. And like I said before, music is also something he's familiar with. He was also a singer, or at least an at-home singer. And sometimes when given the opportunity, he would go out and sing for people's weddings, for community events he loved to sing for. And so as people got to know him that way, it's very interesting. Him being an artist was probably, in a way, his biggest secret. People knew he was a very creative person. They knew he was a singer. He knew he had a beard. And that was his first and foremost, his identity, even in the Vietnamese community. And he's a very stylish man. There's a couple of pictures of him in our exhibits later on in his life. But from the very beginning, his earliest picture, where he didn't have facial hair and he had a hat on, he had that hat for the rest of his life. Every day he left the house, he had to get his hat on. And we nicknamed him Indiana Jones in my house. Yes, and we'd always say, like, yes, Indiana Jones, you need your hat. For the hat. So that was him. As it's interesting that to have, growing up being surrounded by all of these gigantic paintings, they seem to, like, you want to be defined by it, but he was so much of a big person outside of that nobody he was a very friendly person. He was big into singing and being a part of the community. He was a very engaged friend. Many of his close friends, he kept all 40 years that he lived here. And he would continually tell me every time we would go out to the supermarket or to go out and get pho together, he'd come back and he's like, oh yeah, I knew him from kindergarten. From kindergarten? Wow, that's really impressive. But at the same time, it meant so much now that I look back on those comments that when he left Vietnam, every person he burned into his memory, into the in the time that he met them. That even years later, when he encountered them at the supermarket or to go out for lunch, he remembered them. And that was super important because when you come to Mars, you look for people who are like you. And you hope that they can remember you as much as you remember them. And I think that was the biggest part I remember about him.
I love that. You mentioned your mom being here tonight, and there's another lovely story of how we mentioned he painted as an outlet, as a passion, also a really intense hobby. And so he never intended to sell them, even though, like I said, for you guys looking at these, you're like, really? Because you would think this is the intention to sell these, right, and make big money. But no, it was just his passion, his outlet. But on 2 occasions, he caved in and did sell his artwork, and it was so that he could have money for the wedding to marry your mom. Tell me about that.
I love that story because it happened before I was long before I was born, and I had those 2 paintings that were sold. I never saw them growing up. I never knew they existed, really. In the last 5 years did I really know, because we were going through and putting together this exhibit for my father, and I said, where is this painting? There's a photograph of him standing next to it. And my mother says, it's in the house. I'm like, no, I know all of his paintings by heart. I don't know where this one is. And it was a little mystery for myself for a while, until finally we look back at records. I asked her, like, did Dad ever sell any paintings? And she thought, oh, that's right, she did. He did, to my employer, to our family friend, Gary. And I was shocked. I was like, he sold a painting? She's like, yes. I'm like, why did you never tell me? It's been 6 years since he's passed. I didn't know this. So she then told me about how he had painted, he came here and he painted rapidly. So he was already, by the time he was courting my mom, he already had 5 paintings. And my mom's employer saw him every day pick her up from work. And so he asked her, so who's this guy? And she said, oh, we're seeing each other. And he goes, okay, I want to get to know who this guy is. He felt like a fatherly bond for her and wanted to make sure everything was going to be okay. And so he got to meet Mr. Vinh Rao, Bearded Vin, and immediately became best friends. So much so, my dad used to call Gary Big Brother. And Gary is this very, very tall, 6'5", bald guy. And they became very, very close friends. And my dad finally said, at the time my dad didn't have a job. My mom was the one who was working. And so he said, I have a painting and I want to ask you to buy it. Is that okay? He goes, okay, well, why? I want to propose to Julie, my mother. And he said, oh, I will definitely buy it. And so with that, my dad sold his first painting to a friend, which I think is the best thing that he could have done. And with that, he wasn't sure about where he was going to work for a while. And so at that time, he had painted another piece, and Gary had offered to buy another one. And my father said, well, at this point in my life, I think that's what I'm going to do, because he had thought, I think for a moment, that maybe this is how I'm going to make a living, is by selling art. After those 2 paintings left, he couldn't bear to sell another one ever again. So at that point, he began to paint pieces that would take 7, 8, 10 years to finish. And that became his real motivator during in relationship with his day job. And so he would just work the day, always looking forward to being able to paint at night. During lunch break, he'd sketch on napkins, sketch on notebook paper, scraps of paper. And I found that box of sketches. And I only got to exhibit a small collection. But I'm hoping that with this kind of kickoff, an introduction, I will be given another opportunity to share more of his work.
Vinh, thank you. Come on. And I think that we all look forward to seeing his work and his name really going far beyond Oregon and maybe around the world. I mean, these are just very touching creations. So thank you for really continuing his legacy, you and your uncle. And I feel like we do know a lot more about Vinh Rau through you. So thank you for that. I'm going to bring back Uncle Alan. And before that, I want to introduce real quick a relative that they're very proud of as we talk about the future and Vietnamese American impacts. Andrew Nguyen right here, shout out, is a fire captain for Gresham Police, and we believe is the first Vietnamese American fire captain for Gresham. So congratulations. Thank you, Andrew, and congrats to you. For those of you in Gresham, look for him, and he'll help you out. Okay, Alan, I know you have some remarks as we wrap up this evening. It's been very lovely.
Thank you for being with us this evening and allowing us to share a little story of my family as you are now my new family. And today, I hope that we have given people hope, given people happiness, and let people think about the future and what role we have in playing with the future, and whether we can make things be positive and happy and beautiful, or we can make things sad. As an immigrant and as a person who has been here for 50 years and have tried many different venues in order to stay here in what I'm doing, I found that through here as well, if you have a passion for what you believe in and a passion for what you love to do, this will get you through the day, and it will get you through the hardest point of any events that come your way. So on that, on the this year, our first, the Vietnamese Cultural Art Alliance, as I'm the founder, I thank you for being here this evening, and I hope that I will see you in future events as we bring the community together, help each other rise up, and help each other in time of needs and in time of that we need a little joy and happiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, Vân, all our guests tonight, our performers, Thuy and Paul. Thank you, the parents, the family, the kids, all of you. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you took a lot with you as we reflect on the past, present, and the future, as we look at Ving's paintings, as we look at the exhibit all around us of the impacts of the Vietnamese in the last 50 years, but also look to the future. I hope that you'll take these stories, these experiences today, and take them far beyond these walls tonight and share this. And it always inspires me, events like this, to also ask questions and get to know other people and their stories. I said it before, I'll say it again. I think everyone's stories are so important, and we're all on this incredible journey. And there are so many ways that we can relate and connect to each other rather than look at our differences. And that's where I think every single one of you has a story, and let's keep having these conversations and these dialogues. So I thank you again for taking the time to be here tonight. And you guys, thank you for having me as your MC. And looking ahead, we mentioned this is the second of the 3 exhibits. So the next one is May 17th from 10 to 6 p.m. at the Jeffrey Allen Gallery in Tigard. And so they will publish additional original artwork. You got a little bit of a snapshot here. You'll get to see much more. And if I'm correct, this one is the big giant one is there, and it's stunning. So to see all those details in person is great. Then there's the Oswego Heritage House in Lake Oswego. That is the first one that began, and that also has original artwork. It's open now, and that's also through August. So I encourage you to please continue and support and check out the other pieces as well. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. Come on.